Good morning on this super gray and gloomy day, and welcome to a week of vegan meals. These used to be my favorite types of videos to watch way back in 2015 when I first cut animals out of my diet. I used to binge just beauticians what I eat in a day, and they'd bring me so much joy, so I thought I'd make my own, less skillful, less beautiful version of them. All of these are super delicious, and I truly eat them almost every single day. They take very little planning and prepping, and almost all of the ingredients are probably found in your pantry right now. I tend to eat around 2 meals a day instead of 3, so the portions may be a little larger than what people normally would eat for breakfast, but it's just what works for me. Starting off Monday with the breakfast I have most often, some form of toast. I either go with decked out avocado toast, or if I'm trying to prioritize protein intake, I'll do some bean concoction. I'm showing you one of each here. First off, I'll throw some sourdough bread in the toaster oven, and while I wait for that to brown, I make the spreads. For the bean concoction, we're going with chickpeas today, so to a bowl I add a can of washed and drained chickpeas, some vegan mayo, lemon juice, salt, pepper, a ton of dill, a ton of garlic, and some red chili flakes. Then I mix and mash it all together. If I had celery at this point, I would have chopped it up and added that in, but instead I added some sunflower seeds for a little crunch and gave it a little mix. You'll quickly see that's a theme here. I add nuts and seeds religiously. At this point, the bread should be toasted, so I take it out and start working on the avocado toast. Easy, just smash some avocado onto the bread with whatever technique you like. I'll also add the chickpea mash to the toast here, and now I'll add a bunch of spices to the avocado toast. Really don't skimp out on these, they add so much flavor. In this case, I used salt, garlic powder, oregano, and red chili flakes. Then I add the fancy stuff, nuts, seeds, greens, whatever I have on hand at the moment. The avocado toast, I added pumpkin seeds, almonds, hemp seeds, and agave. And to the chickpea mash, I added pumpkin seeds, hemp, hot sauce, and arugula. I truly never get sick of this. There was a time where I was having this every single day for like 4 months straight. It's so good. This is where you see the extent of my laziness. I'm an instant coffee girly, I'm not ashamed to admit it. If I had an espresso machine, you know I would have used it, but instead I make a spin on Dalgona coffee or a frappe pretty much every day. Could have made this all aesthetic and used a frother, but in reality I never do that. All I do is I mix an equal proportion of instant coffee, water, and sugar and shake it in this mug. Then I'll add oat milk to the top plus whatever addition I feel like. Oftentimes that's peppermint extract, vanilla, or rose water. If you're Lebanese, you know the vibe. Usually the sugar is just white or brown sugar, but this time I wanted to try out this raspberry syrup because I thought it would taste good. Good news, it did. I'm honestly not sure what something like this would normally be used for, but if you know, please enlighten me in the comments. For Tuesday, I'm going to show you the only breakfast of the series that requires some prep beforehand, but once it's done, you have breakfast ready for the whole week. After preheating the oven to around 250 degrees Fahrenheit, I add a bunch of oats to a bowl. I rarely measure when I'm not baking, but I'd say around 3 cups. Then I'll add whatever nuts and seeds happen to be in my pantry. This time it was almonds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, shredded coconut, and hemp seeds. Then I add some neutral oil. I only had olive oil on hand, but you can really use any kind of oil. I've tried coconut and vegetable and they all work the same. Then I add some kind of sweetener. This time it was maple syrup and some agave since I ran out of the maple syrup, and some salt. Sometimes I'll add tahini or tahini, and sometimes I'll add whatever spices I feel like cinnamon or cardamom. That's what makes it really nice. You add whatever you have. So I put this whole thing on a baking sheet, then placed it in the oven for around an hour, checking on it halfway and giving it a little mix, and then waiting until it turns slightly golden brown. After it's cooled down, now you can add any of the cool stuff like chocolate pieces or dried cranberries. I'm gonna add cranberries for now, and then maybe some chocolate. This is delicious. You're never gonna go back to store-bought granola after this. And now you have breakfast ready for the whole week. I would either eat this with oat milk, like cereal, or use it to top off my smoothie bowls, or eat it on top of yogurt like a parfait. The options are endless and all delicious. For Wednesday, I'll show you another favorite of mine, breakfast burritos. I cannot get sick of these. It always showcases a sauce I make. Usually it's a pesto adjacent one that contains cashews, olive oil, garlic, lemon, salt, whatever spices I'm feeling at the moment, nutritional yeast, and a big handful of herbs. My favorite to use are basil, mint, or parsley. And if I want to sneak in even more greens, I'll add peas or arugula here too. It is such a delicious sauce. I always want to lick it off the spatula. So in the mornings, I'll grab a tortilla, spread a spoonful of the sauce on it, add whatever greens I have. This time it was arugula and some cabbage, add some sort of beans for protein, and if I really feel like treating myself like I did this day, I quickly crisp up some potatoes I have in the freezer. And it's completely optional, but I wanted to include it here because the crisp is impeccable. Now back to the burrito, I add tomatoes, nuts and seeds, a little hot sauce if I feel like it, and then I roll it up. It took me a while, but I've really perfected the skill. Lastly, I'll give it a quick toast to help it stay closed, and because it adds a little something to it. I got to enjoy this at my desk this day because it was 9 and I had to start work. So good. And now it's Thursday. On the days when I really want to nourish my body, feed it extra fruits and veggies, I'll make my favorite green smoothie. You can't even taste the greens in it, and I've tried anything from adding arugula to spinach to kale, and it doesn't affect the flavor at all. To start, I'll add a banana, some frozen berries, optional hemp seeds and protein powder, the greens, peanut butter, and oat milk. Blend it all together and it makes this beautiful deep purple color. If I use frozen bananas, the consistency is thick enough to eat it as a smoothie bowl, so you have the option to add some of that homemade granola we made earlier. So good. Let me know if you have a favorite go-to smoothie though. I'd love to branch out and try new combos, as I tend to get in the habit of sticking to the same 3 meals for months because I love them so much. Happy Friday. For this one, we're going with a staple. I feel like tofu scrambles are found in so many vegan households, especially new vegans, because they mimic the flavor and texture of eggs so well, particularly if you use what's called black salt or kala namak, which is a type of salt that contains sulfur, which means it tastes really eggy. You can press the firm or extra firm tofu for 10 to 15 minutes to remove the water, or you can do the lazy, or should I say time-efficient method of squeezing the hell out of the tofu to get rid of some of the liquid. It's gonna get scrambled up anyway, so that's what I do usually. Now to make the sauce, I add about a tablespoon of tahini, which is optional but delicious and creamy, about a teaspoon of chipotle, which is also optional, a bunch of garlic powder, paprika, and turmeric, about half a teaspoon of black salt, some black pepper, a lot of nutritional yeast because I'm a fiend for it, but if you haven't tried it before, maybe start with 2 or 3 tablespoons, and around half a cup of oat milk. Then I mix it all together. Then on a pan over medium-high heat, I add some olive oil and let that heat up a bit. Then I add the tofu. I let it brown by stirring only occasionally for about 5 minutes. And after that, I add the sauce and fry for another few minutes until it's reached the texture that I like. You can add some greens here if you like, let them wilt. I didn't have any arugula on me this time, so I skipped that. The time you spend frying it after you add the mixture will depend. If you like it more wet, you won't have to fry it for as long, but I like it on the drier side. And then you're done. You can add it to a breakfast burrito, eat it by itself, or what I'm gonna do, which is make a little bowl. Some tomatoes, some basil, maybe even some crispy potatoes here, a dash of hot sauce, some nuts and seeds. I had a tiny bit of sauce left from the burrito too, so I spooned that in as well. Once again, it's just a great opportunity to add whatever you have in your fridge. It's always so good. And that concludes the week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, or even if you didn't, leave me a comment below, let me know why. And see you next time. Every time I make a meal, I'm like, I should open a vegan restaurant, even though I hate to cook.